John, 2 o'clock, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Coughlan Clare.
Yes, Stevie, second phase of the Munster Championship there. Both of those teams heading down there, having been defeated there in their opening round last Sunday. You know, it's a huge game for both of them.
Did we think even before this that it was going to come down to this? Because it's a crucial game now for both teams to get out there and win this game.
It is, Stevie, because realistically, 4 o'clock next Sunday evening, both of them, one of the bar and a draw, one of them could be more or less on the way out the door of the not only Munster but the All-Ireland series.
And the strange thing about it, John, we're not even gone into the month of May.
No, it's still in the month of April, but look, that's the way it goes. That's the way the nature of the Munster Championship. 5 teams fighting it out there. The sequence of games, we spoke about that last week, but this one is actually, both of them were defeated, and we probably didn't think that now last weekend when we summed it up. We didn't think overall that Cork would be defeated in that. I personally thought Cork and Clare would have won last weekend. It just shows you how wrong you can be, how tight these Munster games are.
Okay, let's get the opinions of Francis Coughlan. Looking back at last weekend, first of all, the results that came out, were you surprised?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to be a bit surprised. I suppose, look, Clare led, as we all know, for the first 50 minutes, and then I think they collapsed a bit. To be fair to them, what they had done in the first half, they really had limited, stifled Limerick to a degree. Limerick had chances all right, but they were far out the field and they hit some bad wides, kind of uncharacteristic of them. To be fair to Clare, they got in 6 points up at half time. But crucially, and I think this is the crucial side of it, Nicky Quaid pulled off was a 2 or 3 very important saves in the first half to deny Clare goals. So probably, would have definitely pushed them over the gain line, as I call it. You come out in the second half then, and I think Clare were sluggish the more I look back on it. Despite Limerick getting numbers back, Clare were still sluggish coming out.
But why were they sluggish coming out? Did they think they had enough done?
I think they possibly did, but they laboured to get to a 9-point lead when Aidan McCarthy put them 9 points ahead. They really laboured it. Now, Limerick had an element of luck. There's no doubt about that with the first goal. They look back and was the free miss hit, or did he mean to do it? Maybe Burns meant to do it. I don't know.
But you always get those things in matches anyhow.
You will. I mean, look, Clare are going to look back on it. Emer Quilligan's going to look back and wonder, should I just came out and taken control of it? The full back, Conor Cleary was grappling with Gillane the whole game, and he was grappling with him coming in, and Gillane got the vital touch, and it brought Limerick within 3 points all of a sudden. I think Limerick then started to withdraw more and more lads out the field as well, and it seemed to work in Limerick's favour because Clare got dragged out the field. It was a bit naive, I think, of Clare to think that they were just going to kind of hold on and everything was going to work, because if you look at the second goal that went in, there was 3 defenders from Clare and 2 Limerick attackers, and it was very tired looking defending when O'Donnell eventually got the ball, and it was another one that could have been saved by Quilligan in the goal as well. And look, we all know what happened with the third goal. Hegarty found himself in an acre of space. I'd say he was pinching himself going in to know was he still dreaming or that, because the space he got. And obviously Gillane finished. Look, there was an element of a square ball. They weren't given. They're the breaks you get in the game. But I think, to me, Clare collapsed, and I think Limerick got a few breaks on the day and they took advantage of it.
Into the third quarter they collapsed, and that's where Limerick, I thought, took advantage of it, and then they ran at Clare and Clare had no answer to them. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but because I think, Stevie, that right through the match, even though Limerick were down, 110 to 8 points at half time, but the wide count, the stupid frees that they were giving away, I mean, it was sort of, what was it? So it looked like lazy tackling or whatever. They were getting pulled for it, and justifiably so, because they were frees. But if they only got 2 or 3 of them scores, so they were up with him at half time. They were still in with a shout. They were definitely not gone out of it at all, and I think they were very, very happy with it, the way they were going. Now, they weren't firing on all cylinders. And then Clare went into the 9-point lead. I got a bit worried at that stage. I said, look, this is Clare's day now. There's no point in saying it, like, you know. But then all of a sudden the whole thing turned. And I think the substitutions made a huge difference for Limerick last Sunday. And I said it there, and I questioned there, I asked the question last week, was Adam English up to it?
Yes.
And I'll tell you one thing, he certainly was when he brought him on after 60 minutes. He proved, you know, that he is up to the rigours and he has the energy for Munster Championship Ireland, you know, and that was a big thing as well.
Not only had he the energy, but he also had the strength and the physique to keep.
He had, yes, and also I think Clare got it wrong from the start. Last Saturday morning on the radio, Mike McCarthy, he picked out the three sub. I think that Clare got it wrong in starting the three of them, because they had the subs then had no impact.
Their bench?
Yeah, they had no impact coming on. Even when Tony Kelly came on with whatever, like, it raised Limerick's game, you know what I mean?
Do you think then, John, briefly, because now we're going to look forward to the games this weekend, do you think briefly that he played into John Kiley's hand by loan?
I think he did, like, you know what I mean? Okay, there's for and against it, but they went through a league campaign, they went through a league final, and they brought on subs in the latter half of that league final. And we named them. Shane O'Donnell came on, McInerney came on, what was the other guy that came on in that league final? But anyway, they started all them last weekend, even and so they had nothing really left. There was no real sort of.
He couldn't go back to the well then.
No, because he had already, you know, started. Like, and the Galvins didn't feature at all. The two Galvins featured in that league final, and they didn't feature at all. They didn't come off the bench at all. So that's what I'm saying is, I think, you know, unless they were injured or something, but like. Going forward now, as you said, Stevie, down to Páirc Creve, what sort of a team will he go back to? Will Lohan go back to for the Cork game, you know?
But John, do you think mentally that this could have an effect on the players?
Well, now, the other side of the coin is that last year, Clare were beaten in round 1 by Tipperary. Now, but it was probably through a goalkeeping.
But they weren't going in as league champions then?
No, they weren't. But they won the last 3 matches after that. Now, you see, you have to look at Cork as well. What they done or what they didn't do. And again, you know, the forwards. There was 4 of the starting Cork forwards against Waterford substituted in the second half, Stevie. Mm-hmm. I mean.
But there's going to be an almighty bite in this game now on Sunday.
There is, of course, like, because, like, you know, Cork didn't make the round robin last year for the first time in it. Like, they're 75 minutes away from not making it again probably this year, you know. That's a huge thing. Now, and after Cork winning, they're talking about, you know, these under-20s and all that. Cork have won 3 of the last 4 under-20 All-Irelands.
But making the step up, as you have often
making the
said,
step up, and especially now it's 20, and I think there's a huge gap. They're not physical enough. I think the whole thing is that since it went back to under 20, it is very hard to judge talent coming through.
Has there been too much focus on strength and conditioning?
I think there is. You know,
Francis, could I get your view as well on that?
Yeah, I think, Stevie, there probably has been. It seems to be the buzzword in every team now.
Is it putting too much pressure on each individual out there now?
Well, it probably can, but I think there's no individualism in hurling then. Every fella nearly has to be built nearly 6 foot tall, and he has to be, you know, plenty of muscle and that on him. There's no small nippy corner forwards that would take off that we've seen, you know, could seen years ago. Every fella seems to have to be built up, and you hear in training or in matches they have to run so many kilometres and that. So there is a huge focus gone in on that now, and it probably takes out the individualism out of a player, and, you know, that bit of creativity as well, because everyone has to be nearly built the same and play the same the way the game is coached now.
How's this game going to go, Cork, on Sunday? It's a crucial game now for both of them. It
is a crucial game. I suppose when you look at Clare, John referenced it there, last year they did lose their first round match. Well, I'd be just worried in the nature they lost the first round on Sunday.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, they were 9 points up, in control. Did they really believe that they were just going to hold on and win, like, or did they just have that self-doubt in their minds, like, and it's a big ask now to come back. And I think first of all there's doubts over Conor Cleary at full back, and there's also I think doubts maybe over Darragh Lohan. He went off injured at half time. I mean, if you just go back to the Limerick match there, Darragh Lohan I think was marking Cian Lynch. He did a very good job with him up to half time when he went off injured, like, so they're going to be two key losses as well. The other side of that is there's been talk all week about Cork, and as John says, why they haven't brought the younger lads through, that they're still relying on a lot of the old guard. Some of them are still there from the 2013 All-Ireland final. You know, the likes of Brian Hayes, Brian Roach, Jack O'Connor. Like, Brian Hayes, I think, was... Brian Roach was starting... He started all 4 games last year at midfield. I read an article there during the week that maybe it's time maybe to put Darragh Fitzgibbon maybe in centre forward, brought Roach on midfield with Tommy O'Connell, that maybe they need to go for a bit of speed. We heard about Pat Ryan looking for goals. But I suppose Alan Connolly didn't get a lot of the ball the last day. When he did eventually get a goal, but the main cry coming out of the game was that he didn't get enough of ball into him. He was the likes of Shane Barrett there, Jack O'Connor as well only came on. Is it time the Cork made some of these changes to maybe, you know, shake it up a little and have a go at it, like, because as John said, it could be do or die. Now 4 points could get you through if you won your last 2 games, but you're relying a lot on how other games go. And like we've seen in the past that you can't just rely on other teams, so it sets it up for a huge battle. And my one thing is, can Clare recover from Sunday, from the mental scars more than the physical scars of last Sunday? You on paper you would think they can, but again it's going to be another thing mentally. And plus you're going down to Cork as well. Cork, you'd imagine, will have some bit of revenge in their minds last week. And I suppose just one brief thing on last Sunday against Waterford. The one thing I was very impressed with Waterford is they never let Cork get ahead of them. Cork got level with them on a few occasions, but they always seemed to have that bit more. The Cork just couldn't get ahead of Waterford. I think psychologically as well, that was huge for Waterford as well, in terms of where we all thought Waterford were like and getting over the line. But I mean, Cork are going to have to... part of it is going to be sink or swim on Sunday, because there's no guarantee you're going to win your last 2 matches either. Like, so you need a performance. Both sides are in the same boat. Both sides need a performance on Sunday.
John, Francis just mentioned there about goals. If you create your chances, you must convert. But that wasn't the case.
No, it wasn't the case. And if you just look at the 3 people that he mentioned there, Pat Horrigan there, he scored 7 points, all from frees last Saturday or last Sunday. The other guy, Harnedy, 2 points, and Conor Lehane 1 point, and they were all taken off, like replaced. So the only one, Fitzgibbons here got in, I think, what, a goal and what? He got 4 points. 4 points. Conley got a goal and 4 or something like that. Like, they're not short of a free taker either. If they're carrying Patrick Horrigan now just for taking frees, like, I think, you know, Patrick Horrigan was a great servant to Cork, but he's not producing it. He's not producing it from play now.
Would he be better off on the bench? I
think he would be better on the bench, and like it's sink or swim now. They have to take a chance at this stage. Now as regards what about Clare? Is it the psychological or the mental that will get him on? You know, would they recover from that?
I was asking.
Yeah, I think that really down to, I think Clare actually thought that they had this game won, because they brought on 4 subs. The subs that they brought on, I was just looking at it there, Stevie. They brought on Shane O'Morey at half time. That was forced because Lohan was injured. Now the next thing then was they brought on Tony Kelly at 54 minutes. Paul Flanagan came on for Hayes in the corner, 58. Then Shane Meehan came on for Rodgers. And Alan Shanahan came on in for Fitzgerald late on. So, I mean, in the last 15 or 16 minutes, they brought on 4 subs who absolutely contributed nothing.
Did they confuse themselves?
I think they did. They needed the silverware, as we said, for the league. They got the silverware. But then, all of a sudden, fellas came on and impressed in that second half of the league final. But hadn't played for the whole league, and then they come out and they start them last Sunday. I think that was the mistake they made. Whatever they'll do on Sunday, it'll be very interesting to see both Cork teams and Clare teams coming out tomorrow night, Stevie.
Okay, Francis, we're going to move on. The big one, Limerick and Tip.
Yeah, another huge game for Tip, and I suppose looking at it from the outset, I suppose the start is what makes it for a lot of teams. It takes the pressure off. We just talked there with the pressure that Clare and Cork are under next week after losing their first round matches. Waterford have a week off, whereas Tipperary are coming into this in their first game against a team that's already won.
So is there extra pressure on Tipperary now?
There is that bit of pressure on you because you want to win your first round game. It gives you a small bit of breathing space if you get beaten in one of your other 3 games. It gives you that bit of breathing space. Now, bear in mind, Limerick weren't up to their best, I don't think, the last day. They will have a lot of those things pretty ironed out maybe during the week as well. So it sets up an intriguing battle. And I suppose the one thing I've looked at it all week is last year we went down, or we were in Thurles and we drew with Limerick. And we probably matched them physically, possibly could have won the game. The big thing about going to Limerick this time, Liam Cahill hasn't beaten Limerick either as manager of Waterford or manager of Tipperary. What can he come up with on Sunday? It needs to be something different. While we need to match and stifle certain Limerick players to stop them, performing, we also need to come up with something that's actually going to be different and something that can actually get us over the line. Like, how can we create goal chances? It goes back to what Clare did on Sunday. An awful lot of direct ball went in on top of Shane O'Donnell on Dan Morrissey. Now, they got a lot of joy out of it, but they left 2 or 3 goals behind them in the first half. Have we the finishers, the likes of Jake Morris, Jason Ford, or maybe Garrod O'Connor, who can get in there and take those opportunities?
Well, I think we have these guys, but if they create their chances, they have to convert them. But our Limerick defence, John, I'll come to you on this one. Do you think that the Limerick defence are going to allow that to happen?
Limerick defence there in the league semi-final against Kilkenny, and again to a certain extent at times in the first, I suppose, 3/4 of the game, the high ball caused them a little bit of problem. They weren't mopping it up as usual. It wasn't coming out that clean out of it.
But you know why is because I think when I was studying that game, they weren't used to the high ball coming in. And that's the type of game that Clare played.
Yeah, Tip is going to have to come up with their own game.
Because normally you get the diagonal low ball down in front.
Yeah, Tip are going to have to come up with their own game. And the interesting thing about that, since the round robin started, or since Kiley took over Limerick there, Tip have only beaten them in the Munster Championship once. And I think that was in the last round of the 2019 Championship. And then
5 years back.
Limerick came out in the week after, or 2 weeks after, in the Munster final. Both of them had qualified for the Munster final, so it was a dead rubber that round. Tip won it, but that was the only time they've beaten Limerick. Now they've drawn with them, but they've only beaten them once. So their record against Limerick or against Kiley in this thing is not good. Now, is it going to change on Sunday? You would certainly hope that it would change on Sunday.
Do you honestly think it will?
I don't think so. You have to be honest now, and there's no point in, my heart says one thing, my head then says another, and you have to be honest. And what I have seen, we saw the league, okay, you have to reference the league because it's current form. I wouldn't read too much into Tip's league match against Clare there. Don't mind the freeze being missed and all that. I wouldn't, that'll rectify itself.
There was no real bite in
No, there wasn't. And I think, I would love to see him coming out of the Gaelic grounds on Sunday, or a 1 point win would do it. Honest to be, my hand on heart, I can't see it happening now, but I'd love to see it happening.
Okay, Francis, what's your view on that now?
Yeah, I think John is right. The league is the only thing we have to reference on, and the league semi-final was their last game. And look, there was a lot of non-performances that day, unfortunately. Is it part of a bigger plan? We would all hope it is, to be honest, in Tipperary. Like, Liam Cahill took the league probably a lot more serious, I think, last year. This year we didn't look. He was trying out a lot of players. It didn't look as if we took it as serious. You would hope that he's a team prime for Sunday. And I suppose a lot of the talk you hear, there's a lot of doubt over who's going to start where as well, who's going to start it. I suppose his hands are pretty tied a small bit. If Carl Barrett hasn't played a whole lot of hurling, and the talk is now he's going to be injured. We're also without Seamus Kennedy as well. But if you look at the back line, I suppose Bear the goalie is still probably maybe it's between Hogan and Shelley. We're not sure who's going to play, but you're probably going to see the likes of Craig Morgan, Ronan Maher, and Michael Breen in the full back line.
I think that's a full back line is picking itself.
It probably is, and I suppose the question is, will Robert Burns start centre back, or will Brian O'Meara slot in there? Maybe you have Conor Bowe on one wing, and you might have Dan McCormack picking up Hegarty like he did last year.
Okay, now that you've named your defence, what does John think of that?
Yeah, you'd have to probably go along with that, Stevie, because when I saw
would you play Robert?
Well, he has been playing there for most of the league, so I mean.
But were you happy with his performances?
He's not. No, I'm not happy enough to it. I'm not happy enough with it. He's not.
Why?
Because he has. He's just
mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made. Yeah, he's not a commanding enough figure. In a pivotal position, if you take the great centre backs around now, he wasn't commanding a commanding enough figure during that. But look at we.
So who would you put in there? Would you put maybe?
I think I'd try O'Meara there. I would try O'Meara there from Holy Cross.
Out to that wing, or out to the right.
Well, it doesn't matter left or right. It doesn't really matter.
He's comfortable in both.
As he said, Dan McCormack will probably pick up your man like he did last year. But look when I saw that league semi-final team, I was saying to myself, well, there's going to be 13 of those starting in the championship. I thought it was really a strong team. It looked a strong team. Now, we've got, it turned out there was lots of mistakes made. That happens. Maybe. Now, I'm very interested to see what team will come out tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. But I think who is going to be I think the centre field, I think Willie Connors, he was one of the better guys against Clare. He done an awful lot of work, Stevie.
There was a lot of grafting done.
There was a lot of grafting. He is a grafter, you know what I mean? Now, Owen Connolly is back in the reckoning.
Is that injury now with Owen cleared up?
He's cleared up, yeah, he's back.
So would you bring him straight in?
I would, of course, bring him in. I would bring him in because he's the type of guy we need. He won't be pushed about either. He's a strong...
He's very physical.
Very physical man.
Yeah.
He's matured a good bit. He's developed. He's gone very, very physical. He can put himself about, and he can get an all score as well.
So, John, while you're on it, I'm now going to go from 10 to 15. What you think?
To me, that's going to be okay. Forward is going to be there. What do you call him is going to be there. Jake Morris. That's a go, and probably inside in the corner, probably Marky Ho, depending on he mightn't have much hurling done. Then you have Garrod O'Connor, I'd say, is a shoe in. Now, do you take Alan Tynan, Stakelum? Does Noel McGrath come back in the reckoning?
I think Alan Tynan will start because of his physical strength. Francis, you just go again, as John have now gone from 8 to 15. Would you agree or disagree with some of those positions?
No, I think he's fairly spot on there. I think we could see Garrod O'Connor maybe starting maybe centre forward.
Out in the 40, yeah?
Yeah, but maybe interchanging or something similar. I think it needs something different, a bit of movement.
Would you start the Bonner? Or a better impact sub, maybe?
He could be a better impact sub, but he could have the physicality in there as well. You see, it depends on how we're planning, how we're going to start. You could need a lot of speed in there. Just going back to the 2021 final there, your reference and matches and that. Ford and I think Bubbles interchanged and nearly played as double centre forwards that day to create space, and it worked to a good degree. I think they confused the Limerick half back line that day. To that element, maybe Garrod O'Connor and Ford would maybe more mobile to do something like that, if that's the kind of game we're running, because a lot of things we saw with Cahill's teams were based on speed, especially underage teams, using the speed of players that were there. I think another interesting one is Alan Tynan. Last year, he stifled Kyle Hayes to a huge degree. He probably sacrificed his own game at wing forward, but he stifled the influence of Kyle Hayes. Kyle Hayes was probably the better of the Limerick half-backs the last day. He was actually the only Limerick half-back to score the last day as well, which was a bit odd. Generally, Burns would chip in with a few points maybe for long-range frees, but he was the only one to chip in there. I suppose Mark Keogh is another one that he has bursts of speed. The only thing about Mark is maybe sometimes he can be better coming on as an impact sub. But our options are probably limited enough, as if you're going to go for speed at the start and try and maybe take Limerick at the start, you need to maybe go with the younger legs and maybe bringing on the more experienced, the likes of Noel McGrath and Bonner Maher to maybe see it out if we were in a good position.
The bench is very, very crucial, John.
It is, but I think Sean Ryan at Temple-Derry will definitely be in the reckoning for a starting shot at that, because he's a guy that's able to win his own ball. He doesn't mind getting dirty in and dirty on it. He's not waiting for it to be set up with a pass or anything. He can take a score. And that is very, when you create the scores, you have to be able to finish them. But I think that 6 forwards is going to be interesting, because, put it this way, I can't see Noel McGrath and Bonner Maher being on the same team. And let's be honest about it. Both of them have huge contributions made to Tipperary hurling. But I just can't see the two of them on the pitch at the same time on Sunday.
Why?
Because they've moved on a bit. With everybody, they have a huge amount under them, a huge game time behind them, but I just can't see the two of them being on the field at the same time.
Francis, what do Tipperary have to do to come out of this game with a win?
I think the first thing we've seen in the last few years when we played Limerick, conceding the sharp puck out, I think that has to be a no-no. I think we need to make Limerick fight for the possession, give them the sharp puck out, and the likes of Barry and Ash get up 40, 50 yards up the field and they set up a score. We have to back the players 1 to 15 in the field that they're going to do their job. The big thing about Tipperary is getting the ball up quick enough. We saw it with Tipperary and Kilkenny to a degree in the league final. This hand passing the ball up the field, but this extra hand pass, this unnecessary hand pass that gets you into trouble, ends up at a turnover, ends up at a Limerick score. That needs to be cut out. We need to get quick ball up to maybe our half back line midfield. Well, I think we need to try and avoid the Limerick half back line. Like, we know what the likes of Burns, Hannon and Hayes are going to bring to it. But if we can avoid them and maybe test...
How can you avoid them?
Well, I suppose that means how quick we can work the ball up to the half back line, up to midfield, and maybe get the ball in over the top. Like Clare went long the other day and got a lot of joy out of it, into Shane O'Donnell. And I definitely think if the likes of Jake Morris is feeding off someone like Jason Ford in there, or maybe interchange with having a big man in there, have Garrod O'Connor in there for a while, you could get an awful lot of joy. But I don't think if Jake Morris starts coming out the field, I don't think that suits him. Jake Morris, for all words, is a poacher. If he gets the right ball, he'll score. I think John is right there about Sean Ryan. The one thing that was very impressive about Sean Ryan in the league was his ability to get out and win the ball. Now, he didn't convert it into a whole lot of scores in the league, but he got his own ball.
His work rate is unreal. Yeah,
his work rate was very good. But that ability in a forward to win your own ball is huge, because you're able to hold it up inside first of all. If the defender's coming out getting it from you, you're already on the back foot straight away. So I think it's like the last day. I said Clare were going to need goals. I think Tipperary will need goals to win it. But we will need a game plan that suits Tipperary and not the opposition.
John, in relation to goals, what Francis was saying there, we have seen it at under 20 and under 21 level under Liam Coughlan and Michael Bevans. Do you think that this can happen again on this coming Sunday afternoon?
Look, at last year against Limerick, what was it, 25 points all or something like that. It's easier said than done to get goals against Limerick, against that backline, but I have a feeling that they might be slipping a slight little bit. They weren't comfortable under the high ball, and what you call him went off last week. Mike Casey went off very early in the game. Now, he must have been injured there. Yeah, and Sean Finn came on, but like, where will the goals come from beside of Jake Morris?
This is my point.
And like, okay, sometimes Mark Kehoe is more of an impact coming off the bench, and we have situations like that with a few of those guys there in the tip set up there, that they're very good coming on, but if you're down 7 or 8 or 9 points,
then that will test.
Have we got the players to bring on the bench that if you're down 6 or 7 or 8 pints with 15, 20 minutes to go, have you got people to come on that'll pull that game out of the fire for you?
Would you be more interested in the bench than the first 15?
I think overall I wouldn't really, because I don't know what sort of a team Cahill is going to pick. We can only assume what he's going to pick. Now, our bench is not strong, and there's no point in we saying that. Our bench is not strong. If we put out our best, what's considered our best 14 or 15 from the start, I don't think we have a strong bench come on, Stevie, and that's been honest.
Agree or disagree?
Yeah, Stevie, I'd have to agree with that. The bench is very much unproven. What we've named there, the 14, 15, 16 players, is probably who we think is probably the best and going to start, to be fair. Like, so the bench is a bit unproven. You hear different reports that there's fellas going well in training, but our fellas have gone well in the league, might have gone well in the league, might be able to start in championship. Championship, as we said last week, goes up 2 or 3 notches straight away. So, again, there is the possibility of getting goals. We've seen what Clare can do last week. But, as you said, if we're 8 or 9 points down, what way are the heads coming on? We saw Clare bringing on lads last week when they started to go behind and things started to go wrong, and there was very little that could be changed out of it. So, I think from the start John is right, we need our strongest team in the field, but it's the start we make I think is going to be crucial. If you can put doubt into Limerick minds again for the second week in a row, and there had to be some doubt there last week. I know there was plenty of stuff said they don't panic and all this. There had to be a certain level of doubt when they were 9 points down in the second half. I think you need to put that doubt in there again and force them to come out and do something different. But the one thing I don't want to see a Tipperary team do is what Clare did on Sunday, is to get dragged out the field if we are ahead. You know, there has to be cool heads and calm heads, and maybe that's where the likes of a Noel McGrath comes in as a second half substitution. He's well able to calm it. We saw what the likes of Noel McGrath was able to do against Wexford in 19 above in Crow Park. He was well able to control the game and dictate where the ball went, and we've seen it again last year. So I definitely think it's the start and the starting 15 and how we can perform there.
Briefly, call it.
Look, on paper, you probably have to go for Limerick. I think if we're to win, I think it's going to depend on the start, but it's going to depend on our tactics. If we go the same as we've gone the last few years, giving up sharp puck-outs and that, I think Limerick are going to take it at the end.
John, your view?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Francis there, because look, we'd all love to see Tip coming out and say they're going to win it. But
are we asking for too much?
We are, I think, at the moment, because
so what about a good performance?
We want, definitely, we want a huge performance from them. And if we get a huge performance, okay, we'll go with that. We can't, but if we don't get a performance, we're not going to get a win. Now, getting a big performance doesn't guarantee a win, but at least if they die with their boots on, I'd be happy enough. So I would on at 6 o'clock down in Limerick on Sunday evening. But I think, in all honesty, and people might say, look, you have no faith in them. You can only go in what you see and what we have seen in these guys over the last couple of years, and what we've seen during the league here now. And I don't think they're good enough to beat Limerick on Sunday. That's my honest opinion.
John, thank you again for joining me. Francis Coughlan, thank you also for joining me.